holidays or whatever you celebrate. This is my last lecture for the year. And so I wanted to talk about something I'm really, really passionate about. And so I won't tell you what it is. I'll just let it play out. Okay. And so I call this series Into the Library because I go into my library and I pull out some books that I think everybody should have. And most people don't even know about them. I thought everybody knew about this stuff. Again, most people don't. Never even heard of them. But I want to start with a couple of quotes. I'm going to read a couple of things, and whatever I say is going to come between those two things. All right, so here's the first one. This is the I Am Lord's Prayer. And this is from the Temple of Presence. And it goes on, and it says, the I Am Lord's Prayer by Beloved Jesus. Good name to be talking about in these times. And it says, my very own God presence, eternal source of my being, holy and sacred is thy name, I am. I am thy kingdom come. I am thy will be done. I am on earth even as I am in heaven. Thy life is my bread, thy love my forgiveness, freely given to all. Thy light consumes every temptation. Thy presence distills all evil conditions. I am transfiguration's kingdom. I am resurrection's power. I am ascension's glory. All this I am forevermore. Amen. Different version of the Lord's Prayer. And I did some study. This is the name of the book. It is called The Temple of the Presence. And this is some church that goes on, but just some of the things they said. I love those things, and I repeat those things over and over. This other piece here, I'll get into this book a little bit later, but sometimes I go and I pick up a book, and I have to get it once I start reading it, and something just grabs everything about me. But this book, I have to have this book because some of the things I discuss, people think I just pull it out of the air or wherever they think I pull it out of. But I'm just going to read this one piece. All right, I'll go into this book. This book is called Behold a Pale Horse. Right? Won't even get into it yet. And here's what I'm going to read. One basic truth can be used as a foundation for a mountain of lies. And if we dig deep down enough in the mountain of lies and bring out that truth to set it on top of the mountain of lies, the entire mountain of lies will crumble under the weight of that one truth. And there's nothing more devastating to a structure of lies than the revelation of truth upon which the structure of lies was built. Because the shock waves of the revelation of truth reverberate and continue to reverberate throughout the earth for generations to follow, awakening those people who have no desire to be awakened to the truth. Okay? Very deep. Because to me, I think all we've been taught, there's lots of lies underneath those, what they tell us. And I just want us to come to the truth for ourselves, pretty much. Right? So I'm going to start with, I'm going to walk out the camera off and on because I got to pull up some of these books. And I just wanted to get them on record so people can go back and look at them later. And if you feel to read them, read them. But some people don't even know these things exist. Okay? And so, and I've read, I don't even know the count anymore. Because I taught myself this stuff. Right? Didn't have big money to go to big colleges and stuff, but maybe that was the best thing. Right? Because I know lots of people who are doctors and lawyers and triple degree holders who's supposed to know everything, and you can't tell me how the pyramid was built. So evidently something is missing, right? I'm not taking anything away about your studies. I'm just saying something is missing. And so I think I found that something, right? So, and this is for me, whether you like it or not. This is me, right? So the first book I started reading back in the day was called The Passionate Mind by Joel Kramer. And this book just taught me about, opened my eyes about belief, pleasure, freedom, fear, death, thank you, time, love, sexuality, meditation, and evolution. And it's talked about a dragon, and the dragon was eating its own tail. So whatever he did, he was going around in circles. It's a good book to start off. This is the book. I bought a newer copy, but this is the book with all the stains and all the pieces, and a couple of pieces in here I just underlined. Again, I opened this book. It came directly to this page again today. I did it this morning. This is talking about time. And I was going to do a lecture about time, but it got to be a little difficult for me because I'm in time trying to explain what time is. And my brain needs to be working outside of time so I can talk about it. So I pushed that off. Now here's what I underlined. And this was probably at least 25 years ago, right? And as I go back, all these things are still pertinent. Some of these things already happened and gone by. And so I underline, thoughts come mechanically out of memory, out of conditioning. The ideas we have about the way things are should become, the ideas we have about the way things are or should be come from conditioning, right? I won't get into this too much, but this is when I started. And I started trying to figure out what was wrong with me, what was different about me. Things weren't working. And so at that point, I didn't even know I was taking responsibility for my own way, but I was. And so I started reading this book. And in the beginning, it was Afrocentric to me, right? Because going to Methodist church, I didn't see myself, as they talked about all these stories, I didn't see myself in any of them, so I was just going to church because my mama made me. Twice on Sundays, Sunday school, I think one day during the week, right? Those things were good now, and we talked about the Bible, and we read stories, and I could recite. I could recite everything. And at some point, reciting wasn't everything to me. Anybody can recite. I can read it and recite it. And then it pretty much ended there for me. So, but once I started doing all these studies, again, it started to be Afrocentric because I had to see myself in the Bible. Didn't know that, but I started searching. And so I did the Afrocentric study because I had to find out who I was first. And then once I found out I had a good direction or a good feeling of who I was, then I had the search broadened. Whereas I wanted to know more about everybody else. Or I wanted to be able to not just help African Americans, but help every single person. And then it got to spread out to be, I want to help animals and trees. And then it spread out to there further, and I'll get into that really quick. And so a lot of people said, how did you get where you are? I started reading. I started studying, or I call it researching, right? And of course, I had the Bible. Everybody has that book. And then for some of my friends, this is Tutankhamun, right? And if you can see this one, right? So he was Egyptian. And so all my studies led me into some of this information because they were around the African spot, around the African continent, right? So it's like, oh, well, Jesus was around there, so maybe he wasn't what they say he was, or he wasn't that color that they say he was, or he is. And I only saying that because I lived in Barbados, and we were Methodists to the bone, But every church we went into, Jesus was white. The picture was white. Right? So there was some disconnection for me. I didn't have a problem, and so didn't know that, but it just I felt disconnected. But then when I started reading all this stuff, it was like, oh, he may have been brown. Who knows? He may have been black. He may have been from somewhere else. Who knows? And so I started moving on. And so I got into all the Egyptian stuff and ancient history and all that, which we all need to know, right? And so for some of my friends who want to always talk about Jesus and stuff, I wonder if they have this book, or I never found this book in the library. I went to a space in Houston called the Black Madonna, and they had all these different kind of books, and so I came across this book. It is called, if you can read it, I'm gonna read it out so you'll have it. It is called God, the Bible, and the Black Man's Destiny. Because before they didn't even talk about us. We were just slaves. We were not a real human being. That's what they tried to tell us. And then I found this book. And so in the back, you'll see all the pyramids, right? Which is all sacred geometry, and all that kind of stuff, right? And so here we are, back in the day, people that look like me, right? And so this is where all my studies started. And again, sorry for putting you on the ground, books. I love you. There's also this book called The Ankh. We have all seen that. Most people wear it. They have no idea what it's about, right? And this is called The Ankh, and it is by Nir Ankh Amen. And it is the African origin of electromagnetism. Electromagnetism is very important, right? That'll come up a little bit later on. And so some people, please, you got to read these books if you're going to come talk to me about the Bible and stuff, right? This one is called Adam, the Altaic Ring, and the Children of the Sun, right? The Children of the Sun usually are dark-skinned people because, that's where they worship. That's where they were. Good book to have, James R. Granger Jr., right? And this is information you need to put together, and it will explain lots of the stuff you're reading in the Bible. Guaranteed, right? Again, this is specific. Blacks Who Died for Jesus, a history book. Anybody ever heard about this book? And there are names in here that I would not think would be African. And so it's like, oh, so there were more connections to me and Jesus and just from reading this stuff. And so this is how I started finding my self, right? And again, this is going to start getting to stuff like sacred geometry when we start talking about Egypt and all that. And if you really notice, we don't go very far back than Egypt, right? What happened before then, right? Well, let's start having a conversation about what happened before, all right? This one is called Amen, the secret waters of the Great Pyramid. And they're saying the Great Pyramid has a purpose, and the water used to run through it, and it gave them electricity and all kinds of deals. Just a different perspective. It just isn't a burial tomb because you never found any bodies in it. So it was actually a device to me, and it produced energy. All right? And the next one I want my friends to read. My friends probably know who they are by now. This one is called David Walker's Appeal. If you are of any type of color descent, Hispanic, African, this is for you to read, right? David Walker's Appeal is to the colored citizens of the world. So we're not just talking USA, of the world. We're talking everybody, right? Because again, this racism thing goes deeper than we ever imagined, and you don't even know it. I was in the Air Force, right? And we had, and I was in the Philippines. And Filipinos are really light-skinned individuals, right? But they had dark-skinned Filipinos that they call negritos. And while everybody else had their shops out the front gate of the base, the Negritos were relegated to the back gate. Even though they came out and they did all the grass and cut, they were relegated to that position. So then I was like, oh, this racism thing isn't just here. It's global, right? And even more than that. And so you should read this book. It tells you how the system works against you. And I think everybody should read it, not just colored people, just so you have a complete understanding of what's going on behind the scenes. All right? This is by introduction by James Turner to the colored citizens of the world, but in particular and very expressly to those of the United States of America. My friends, you got to pick this book up and read it, and you will understand how the system is working against us in total. All right, so once I started doing the Afrocentric thing, it got me into Egypt, and then, pardon the books, and then so this is called the Hathor material, right? And the Hathors are, it says, messages from an ascended civilization, right? Ascended meaning, to me, the whole civilization raised their consciousness and moved on. And I think that's where our next step is going to be, whether it's now or a long time away. Because back in the day, Jesus was okay. One man came to help all the rest. Now we all have to go up. We all have to go up. Our problem is we don't treat our children very well, and we don't treat our elders very well. And so until we can do that, we will not ascend, because we're trying to go and leave other people, right? And so I got a lot of information from these, I call them these people, right? Again, I'm attracted to them because they came out of my African studies. Remember these. And so nobody ever wants to go and talk about after or before Egypt, right? And what people don't want to do, I'm doing, because I want to know the whole story, right? And so it took me into, this is a whole series of books. There are like 30 of them now, and all this started, again, 20 years back or so. I started playing with these books. And one of them is, I talked about energy the last time I was here, how everything is energy. No matter what we do, everything is energy. And if everything is energy, there's something about you that can be measured everywhere. Your energy, your energy can be seen a million light years away. Everybody is energy, and everything is energy. And so you have this spark. That's why people love us. That's why people are coming here to take a piece of us, because not everybody can reach that far back. There's a certain spark they're looking for. It's called a God code. They're calling it all different kinds of things. And so this series of books, you don't have to get them all, but it's good to know. And this is called the Explorer Race. And this is about a race of people that goes out into the stars and teach people how to deal with negativity. Because that's why some people wear suits around us, because they can't take this negative energy we give off. Again, we're all energy. And so if they stand in that energy, they would just go nuts. And so that's why some people wear suits around us. I'm going to call them people for now. But this is a good series, and it is by Robert Shapiro. I love that man. A good shaman and a good medium, and a trance medium. And we're all about mediumship here in this church, right? In whatever way it is. This race. And so I'm talking about Explorer Race. And then so what they do is they go out into other places, for lack of a better word, and teach people how to deal with fear. Right? Like some people, don't play games because there's a winner and there's a loser, right? And they don't deal with lose. They don't know how to deal with that. Whereas for us, that's all it is. Even though I don't really agree with, I like win-win. I think when we're doing our sports, both teams should win. Because then we praise the winner and we kick the loser almost, which is not win-win. Some losers decide, I don't care what you say, I'm going to win anyway, and they take that and move with it and do something great. But it should be win-win. And so the Explore Race, absolutely fantastic series. If you want to know about yourself and the earth, this is the series. And so those people I'm talking about are us. Who better to teach about negativity than somebody who lives in it for eons? Teach other people, hey, this is what you do when you lose. You go back and you practice more and you learn more and you go back into the game, right? Because some people are so highly evolved, they're stuck and they can't go anywhere because there's no impetus to, they didn't lose, so they don't get to go back and study and rework and do it. They're just in a level space and everybody needs to move. As we are moving, we call ascension. As we're moving up, everybody else is moving up. Not just us. Everything is moving up. Okay, good series of books. I learned a lot about Earth and history. This one is called, and again, this is book number 10, The Explore Race, right? Earth History and Lost Civilizations. Again, this is by Robert Shapiro. And there's so many things that happen on Earth that we have no idea about, right? This one talks about Atlantis and Lemuria and all different kinds of things, and the first Adam, right? Or also like the first Adam or the second Adam. Or it's like Adam came as an upgrade. He came with a certain energy to upgrade who was already here. Upgrade their consciousness, right? Just a different perspective. I'm here to blow your mind today, all right? And so that is a good book to know about because Earth is older than we think. Much, much older than we think. Maybe billions of years old. Very old, so lots of things happen here, right? And really, on an energetic level, everything that happens here, that energy of that moment stays here. That's why people can sit and relax and pull stuff up, because the information is still here about what happened here. Okay, so we got to pick up on these things. And so I start talking about Egypt and all that. And then everything stopped for me. And it's like, what is the problem here? We didn't go any far back than Egypt, right? And it came to me, there's some concerted effort, some combined effort that we not know this information. And there's a host of companies that will never they will never say how things really are. All right? And so when I started dealing with Egypt, it took me to a space that is called an extraterrestrial space, for lack of a better word, which means they were not born as we know it right here. And the problem with what we're thinking now is that we're the only thing in the universe. There's nothing else but us. That's what we think. As far as I can figure out, that's what most people think. We're at the top of the food chain. Nothing else is out there in the universe. The galaxies, the millions of galaxies, the billions of galaxies. It's only us out there. That's what people think. And so we were made to think that way. And so I want to bring up some of these books, right? Again, this is my friend Robert Shapiro, right? They call him Robbie. This one is called The Explore Race, E.T. Visitors Speak. This is volume 2. There's volume 1 and 2. Okay, and these are, so we know about meditation, and we know about mediumship, and we know as spiritualists we can get into a certain space, and we can connect with people that passed over, as we call it, or we can connect with people or consciousness from other spaces, right? We know that to be true. And so how come we don't hear about these books? I guarantee you won't find these books in your library, right? So ET visitors speak, and ETs can be just plants that came from somewhere else, animals that came somewhere else, not just people. All right? And so, and this is ET visitors speak. Again, there's lots of stuff going on we don't know about. This one is called ETs on Earth, Volume 2. There's a Volume 1 and Volume 2. See how thick these are? Lots of information. Not that we are going to believe everything that's written here, but open your mind that some of the things may be true, right? And we just got to prove one time. And then everything changes. Everything changes for me. And so, and again, there are people that are walking among us. We don't even know who they are. We may think they look like us, but again, we don't even know. Okay? And I talked about particle personalities before. And what I was talking about, it was that everything is made up of particles. The smallest item is a particle. And that particle has memory and has consciousness and can communicate with you. Everything that you can look, see, feel, touch, smell is made up of lots of particles. And so if you get into a space and then you can communicate with those particles, because again, your energy, it's energy, you have that connection. If you don't know it, then you will never know it. But if you do, then you realize I can communicate with everything, everywhere, right now. Okay? And so particle personalities, and this book is called Plant Souls Speak. Right? And we know that pretty much most medications today are based on some type of plant medicine. We're trying to replicate what the plants do. And we try to create something, right? Which at some point has side effects and side effects and side effects, right? And so again, the plants, they're all made of particles, and so you can communicate with the particles of the plants. That's what shamans do. They're go in their space and use this for this, this for this, this for this. Everybody can do that. Not relegated to us shamans, right? Everybody can do this. What I'm talking about here is not just relegated to me, to everybody else who's looking at this, seeing this, or listening. Plant souls. Look how big it is. Look how thick it is. Lots of information, right? Grow your mind. I'm going into 2019 running. I'm not going to wait till the new year to start my, what do we call them? Resolutions. I'm starting now. I'm getting a running start. 2019, I'm already running. This one is called Animal Soul Speak. Right? This is by Robert Shapiro. Look how thick it is. And he's talking to animals, and animals can communicate with you. You heard about the horse whisperer and the cat whisperer. We can do all that. But some person doesn't want us to do that. Person as in some conglomerate or whatever. Right? And then astrology is a wonderful thing. Right? It's a blueprint of... Oh, my mouth is running. It's a blueprint of when you were born, all the planets were in a certain space. And so you have this blueprint when you were born that you come in with. Right? If you never do any work, then that's how you live your life. But if you do work, then you can do whatever you want to do, be whatever you want to be, go wherever you want to go. Right? Just the basics. And so, and this blew my mind when I started dealing with this. We can talk to particles. This one is called Astrology, Planet Personalities and Signs. So you can actually communicate with particles of the planets. You can communicate with particles of your zodiac sign. You can communicate with particles of gold, of the sun. Everything you have the ability to communicate with. Everything. There's absolutely no doubt. because we all say we're made of the same thing, whatever you want to call it, right? And so there's lots of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Okay, I'm coming to the end. They're telling me I'm coming to the end. And so there's a problem when you say extraterrestrial, everybody goes nuts. But I can talk about Santa Claus, who doesn't exist. I can talk about Brer Rabbit, who doesn't exist. All right? I can talk about Iron Man, who doesn't exist, or Superman, or Aquaman. What was the last one? The Black Panther. Everybody knows that. But I can't talk about extraterrestrials. Why is that? I can talk about fantasy, but I can't talk about truth. Right? We can talk about fantasy stuff. When I was coming up, it was the cow jumped over the moon, whatever that rhyme was. What? I remember it still because I can memorize stuff. But nobody wants to talk about these simple things. And now we're going back behind or past the Egyptians, right? So I started doing research on extraterrestrials and UFOs. And it's just an unidentified flying object. It could be a bird, we don't know what it is, but it is unidentified. That's all that means. That's all that means. Doesn't mean it's a bunch of crazy people in there. That's all that means. And so I started doing a lot of research, and certain books you have to read, right? Because at some point, we want to heal the world, right? We want to feed the world, yet nothing is happening. And why is that? It's because there's another concerted effort that never happens, so that we come to you for what we want, versus let us do this together, in a community and help our community out. World hunger is individual, because you got to fix yourself and your surroundings first, and then the world will fix itself. But we don't want to talk to our neighbor, but we want to go help the people in Africa. Come on now, we got to start with yourself, around you, and then everything else will work itself out. Right? And so some books you need to have in your library. The Day After Roswell. All right, this is by Colonel Philip J. Corso. This is a colonel in the military. And you don't just get to be a colonel by walking in and say, like, here's my resume, I'm a colonel. You move up through the ranks. So you have some type of, I don't know the word to use. Credibility. Right? The Day After Roswell. Everybody know about Roswell? You've heard that, right? Or you've gone through Roswell and see all the alien stuff. That is true. That thing happened. And there was stuff that happened before that you have to search and find. That thing happened. And this was in the 40s or something like that this thing happened. And so all this says is that we are really not alone. We were never alone. I always say, as a person, I'm never alone because I have family members with me. I have an Asian person with long hair that rides with me. I have a Native American person, so I'm never alone. But also, I have other roots, other places, other friends, other places. So I'm never alone. We were never alone ever, right? The Day After Roswell, and this talks about how when the event happened, people covered it up, took all the material from this flying saucer that crashed, right? Stuff we never knew about. What is good to know is that some of those Egyptian writings were on that craft. So now there's a connection to Egypt and extraterrestrial civilizations, right? Nobody's talking about it. I'm sorry, I have to. We know about it, we're just not talking about it. Okay? And so from this reverse engineering, I take what I found, and I don't know how it works, so I break it down and I start doing things. and I'm trying to put it back together, and I come up with circuit boards, LEDs, light emitting diodes. That's how we got those. That's how we got microwave. Taking that information and they call it back engineering it. And then all of a sudden we have, what's the bulletproof thing? Teflon. We didn't just come up with that. We got information from going through this information and backdating it. Okay? Anybody heard of the Montauk Project? Right? And this is experiments in time, and this was done by the military, right? And what they were doing is it was the Navy, and again they're using this back engineered information, and what they would do is they would and Tesla was working on this stuff too, and they call him crazy, but yet when he died they stole all his stuff and used it. And so what they were doing, they would take this big ship and they would apply some electromagnetic product to it with a lot of energy. And it would somewhat disappear because they were trying to find in the war, how do you get past all the defenses of everybody else, right? And so they were playing with this, not in a spiritual way, which is a problem right off the bat, right? And so what they did was they moved the ship from here. They didn't even know what they were doing. They just wanted to make it disappear so people won't see it, but it ended up going somewhere else. And then when they reversed it, this was in New Jersey, just so you know where this is in the States. When they reversed it and brought the ship back, there were people hanging out of the walls because they didn't really know what they were doing, right? That place is still there. You may not be able to get to it, but it is Montauk. It's like a little island right connected to on the East Coast. The Montauk Project. There was a movie about that. Again, this stuff is true. So, they're sneaking stuff out to you, but you thinking it's fiction or it's just a movie. So when as time comes up and we say you've been lying, it's like, no, we haven't been lying. Here's the information. Go watch this movie. So I recommend for people, when you start working with this stuff, you want to go back and watch Star Trek and act like it's real. Or go and look at the Alien movie and act like it's real. Or what's the other one? I love it. Avatar. Go and look at that like if it's real. The big ship that they were using, it is like a battleship. That carries all the planes and all that? Is that what that's called? It's a carrier. And it is like that, except it flies in the air. So go back and watch it and see that stuff act like it's real, because it's real, right? I don't even know what I want to call his name. The president is talking about a space force. What? Remember, anytime the government comes out with something, it's 20 years old already. So they've been doing this stuff already from all this back engineered information for years, 40 years, take a few more. So there's stuff going on that they don't want us to know. And out of this extraterrestrial stuff, we're going to find out we can heal ourselves. Right? Because these people, things that are able to do it. And if they can do it, we can do it. Because again, we are part of them. Whether you want to believe it or not. Check your DNA, 12-strand DNA. You are part of them. But they don't want you to know that. Again, there's a concerted effort to keep you from realizing you can heal yourself. Why would that be? So they can make their money. Right? That's all. I'm just throwing stuff out there. That's why they don't want to talk about extraterrestrials or what. We're an ET because we really weren't grown here. Just so you know, right? And some of these names are important versus the books because they wrote other books as well that can corroborate other things. This one is called AD. Not after the death, but after disclosure. And disclosure is when they say, oh, we are indeed not alone, right? And And this has been going on for a while, right? What will you do when you realize you are not alone? Or we are not alone, or we were never alone? What will change? What will happen after that? Right? Because again, once they start doing that, we're going to want to know, well, how did they get here? Because when we drive our things, we can only go so fast. We can only go so far, right? Otherwise, we're out of the air, we're out of fuel. So how did they get here from Sirius, from Orion, from Arcturus, from how did they get here? Right? And then once we started delving into how they got here, what is their propulsion system? How do they propel themselves so far or so fast? And it has to do with like this 0 point energy where we can pull energy from wherever we are right now. Right? There's a rover on Mars fooling around, and we're getting communications from it. How are we getting that? We don't have a cord running up there. How are we getting that information? We have satellites that we're getting this stuff back. How are we getting that? Let's talk about that. Right? How are we getting the pictures? So they're getting energy, and Tesla was doing this. They're getting energy out of the space right in front of them. They don't want us to know that, right? We could power this church for the rest of its life with a little box. We would never pay the government again, the electricity company again, and so they're not going to tell us that. That's why you have to do your own research, right? You don't have to invent the wheel again. There are many people, and you got to get these names up that are doing these things. Okay? Richard Dolan, that's a good name to know. I think there's a project now called To the Stars Academy where they're now trying to get more information out to the masses. It's there, just governmental, but not the masses. Absolutely great book. This is by Tom DeLonge, is another name you need to remember. Tom DeLonge. This book is called Secret Machines. S-E-K-R-E-T, Secret Machines. And this is about all the machines that the government has already that we have no idea about. What it is, underground trains that go from base to base, from one Air Force base or Navy base to another one. And we have no idea about it. It runs up to the Pentagon, up to the president's little spot, the White House. We know about none of that. There are machines that leave here and go to the moon right now. Have anybody ever wondered, we stopped going to the moon? Why is that? Are we out of money? What is it? We didn't learn anything? Are we never going to go back? Why did we just stop? And we didn't stop. It just went behind the scenes because we don't want to tell you we're going there all the time. And we can get there in 30 minutes. We don't want to tell you that because then you're going to be like uproarious. We don't want to tell you that we can heal. You can heal yourself because I'm going to be mad that my mother passed away from some type of cancer. My dad did. My brother did. Right? We can heal those people. They can heal themselves. There's machines they can go in and get refreshed. They had that in Atlantis as well. There'll be some Atlantis movie coming out soon. You'll see some of these technologies. Secret machines. And I just found out, and this is just crazy to me, that on the shoot for Aliens, there is a military person on set. So it tells me that the government is entwined with this thing called Hollywood. And they're feeding us certain information and keeping certain information from us. Right? The information is out there. You just got to look. You can't expect the TV to come on and then spill to you, hey, we've been lying to you for 50 years. We could have helped your parents and your brother, but we didn't. Right? This is a concerted effort to keep us from knowing ourselves and this wonderful thing we call a soul or a spirit that resides in every one of us. There's an effort to not let us know that. So there's more, but I'm going to stop because I could go on all day. Because when I get in this place, I'm connected to my own library in my house, which is connected to, like the sun is connected to the central sun. So I'm connected. And so if you have any question, I will take it right now. What comes to mind right now? Any questions? Yes.
That book, the
Monto Project. Mm-hmm.
Is that related? Is that the Philadelphia incident?
Exactly what it is. Correct. Yeah. So, and you would think that, oh, that's a movie. Maybe it didn't happen, but it did happen. And so the government is playing with technologies from somewhere else. Right? But they don't want to just come out and say it. Right? Another person that comes to mind, Dwight D. Eisenhower. Anybody ever know that name? We know that name, yes? Do we know of her daughter, of his great-granddaughter, Laura Eisenhower? Yes. Read up on her stuff as well, because it seems that if you're in a certain position, presidents, or you get access to other things that us local people don't. And she decided, okay, I'm not going to do that. Let me tell you what really goes on. So all this information is out there. You just got to go out and search for it, and then you will find what your truth is from reading all this stuff, looking up all this stuff. Okay? And again, I love this stuff. I can talk about this stuff for days and days because it's like I get energized. It's like God is running through me like, you need to do this. You need to do this. And I used to wonder back in the day, why am I reading all this stuff? Why am I studying so hard? It's for right now that I can share this with you. And you don't have to go out and read all these things, but that you take this as a stepping stone and jump off and do something that nobody believes. My slogan for next year is do something that makes somebody's impossible possible. Or what is it? Come to me. Do something that makes their impossible no longer possible. Because people think everything is impossible until they see somebody do it. And then it's like, oh, I can do that. Do that. And help somebody out. Okay? Any more questions? Yes, sir.
The Santa Claus does exist. If you was here last Sunday, you would have realized Santa Claus exists.
Correct. Correct. He does exist in every single one of us. Why don't we tell our kids, I'm Santa Claus. I worked hard to get you these things, and they would probably treasure them more. But we don't want to tell them that. We want to lie to them and keep them in a certain space. But yes, people give. And last Sunday, or Reyes, everybody should be giving. And we won't ever need things from the government. If we started giving every Sunday to somebody else, what do you need today? $5, here you go. We wouldn't depend on the government because that's the trick. We're going to make them depend on us, and then we can toy with them. If they don't need us, then we won't even need senators and stuff like that. Okay? Any more questions? All right. Thank you for coming and listening. I'm going to leave the books out. You can take pictures, whatever you want. I'm available to do some classes about this stuff if I get some interest. Okay? All right. Thank you very much.